In a race that started unpredictable, became very predictable, but in the end still somehow shocked us all. Yo, what's up everyone? My name is Jett. Welcome back to an episode of MDK Racing Victory Stop. Hope you're all having a wonderful Easter. Richmond just wrapped up and boy do we got some stuff to talk about. We started off the race unpredictable, like I said, in the wet conditions. They started the race for the first 3 laps with the wet weather tires. Then it got very predictable through majority of the race, but how it ended has got some people talking. Now let's forward over to the end of the race. Let's talk about how we got there. So up front was Martin Truex Jr. He had the best car. He led the most laps late in the race. Second place was Joey Logano. Third was Denny Hamlin. Now, Denny Hamlin was on a different strategy. He was off sequence. He pitted a lot later than Truex, Logano, and those other drivers to be able to have 11 lap fresher tires. He was 6.5 or so seconds behind Truex with 38 some odd laps to go, was able to eat that lead away. But then as soon as he got to Logano was only 6/10 behind Truex. Hamlin stalled. Lap traffic played a role in it. Truex was able to get ahead of the lap traffic with easier than Logano or Hamlin did. And it seems as though that Truex was building up that lead, was going to ride off into the sunset to win for the first time in 2024. Until 2 laps ago, off of turn number 4, Kyle Larson gets loose right in front of Bubba Wallace, who finishes him off by taking him out. Pause there. Ends up spinning, only losing 2 spots because the gap between drivers was so massive when the caution came out. Larson only lost 2 positions. On pit road, Truex entered in first, Hamlin entered in third, but because of Hamlin's pit crew, Hamlin was able to get out ahead of Truex. That means that Hamlin was the leader and Truex was in second. The first and only overtime of the race, Hamlin got out ahead. Truex tried his best to hang on onto Hamlin's right rear corner panel. They get a bit sideways off of turn number 2. Hamlin clears Truex. Truex falls back to 4th. Logano and Larson have a bit of a battle. Then Truex just becomes an absolute animal, just body slams Kyle Larson, and that allowed Hamlin to go on to win at Richmond for I believe his 54th career Cup Series win, his 2nd win of 2024, and his 5th win overall at his home track of Richmond. Truex continues to be a menace by just ramming into the back end of Hamlin's car 2 or 3 times. Larson and Truex then nearly wrecked entering turn 1 after the checker flag. Clearly, Truex was pissed. Don't know why he was mad at Hamlin because they were racing. It's racing for the win, but on one side I do get it, but tough break for Truex because he did have the fastest car and led the most laps. Now, what everyone is talking about is, did Hamlin jump the restart? Let's take a look at the footage. This is coming to the restart, and it looks as though that Hamlin maybe just barely jumped the restart. Now, NASCAR has said that that restart is not under review, therefore Hamlin has won the race. Obviously, this is being recorded before post-race inspection, but NASCAR is not reviewing the restart. But I don't know. To me, it looks like Hamlin does roll. He does get out ahead, but I don't know. It's like a very fine line of if he jumped or, was Truex just maybe lagging back a little? I don't know, but it's a very, very fine line. But I do think that maybe Hamlin just barely, at the very least, rolled. To say he jumped, okay, that's a bit more proof. I need a bit more proof to maybe come to that decision. But I do admit that I do have to say that Hamlin may have just he may have just pushed the throttle just a little bit, just rolled a little bit more than Truex did, but did cause some controversy through the finish of that race. But yeah, let's take a look at the results because we need to talk about this race. Before we get into the results, I think the reason why NASCAR didn't do anything about it is because it wasn't egregious. Like, we have seen drivers get penalized for jumping the restart early and things like that. Truex mentioned that during his post-race interview, but I think that's just because he's a bit salty over what happened in the final 2 laps. I think with Hamlin's deal, because it wasn't so egregious, you have to really think. It's like, did he do it? Did he not? I think because of that, NASCAR's like, listen, unless it's like clear as day, we're not going to do anything about it. So I think that's why, NASCAR didn't do anything about the restart. But it did cause some controversy again as to whether or not Hamlin did jump the start. But I think, again, he rolled, but I don't think he really jumped the start. Anyways, the results. Hamlin wins. Logano Finally, Logano has a good run. That's his first top 5 finish the entire season. Comes home in second. Kyle Larson in third, started on pole, led the early ways. Man, tough break for Martin Truex Jr. Led the most laps of it, but ends up in fourth. Chase Elliott in fifth. That's his first top 5 finish so far in 2024. Excellent run for that number 9 team. Christopher Bell rebound from a pit road speeding penalty following that last round of green flag pit stops. Rebounds for 6th place, so a great run or rebound for him. Byron, a quiet 7th place run. Brad Keselowski and RFK teammate Chris Buescher 8th and 9th, and Tyler Reddick the top 10. Josh Berry in 11th. He had a great car. He started 30th, drove his way up to as high as I believe 3rd or 4th place in the early stages of the race. Ends up in 11th, but still a good run for that 4 car. Noah Gragson once again, solid run for him in 12th place. SHR is slowly but surely getting better. Bubba Wallace finishes in 13th. Now Bubba, after that incident with Kyle Larson, he ran in the top 5, top 6 for majority of the race. But one thing we do know about 2311 Racing, one thing you can absolutely bet on, is that they will find a way to screw you in the pits. Again, Bubba came in, I think, 4th or 5th into the pits, but awful pit stop, ends up finishing in the 13th position. Eric Jones in 14th. Chastain rounds up the top 15. Ty Gibbs had a speeding penalty early in the race, wasn't able to really recover there. Alex Bowman, Chase Briscoe, an off day for Ryan Blaney in 19th, and Kyle Busch, who we're going to talk about him a bit later, but ends up in 20th. Then some other notables like Daniel Suarez, 22nd. Todd Gilliland ahead of him in 21st after he started 6th. Had a good start in the first 30-some laps of the race. John Nemechek in 25th. And you see Ryan Preece, 28th. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., 33rd. And then Corey LaJoie and Zane Smith, 35th and 36th. I don't know what happened with Corey LaJoie that made him finish dead last. But yeah, let's talk about this race. This race was... was it the best next-gen race at Richmond? I don't know. But I will say, NASCAR, the officiating, oh my God. The reason why I'm a bit pissed off with NASCAR's officiating was because the first 30-some-odd laps were very entertaining. You know, with the wet weather tires, you saw battles all over, different, racing lines. Very entertaining racing. Then NASCAR threw the caution. I understand it's for the safety of the drivers and the pit crews as well, but we were under caution for nearly 20 laps after that competition caution because pit road was still wet, non-competitive pit stops, all that stuff. To be under caution for 20 laps is ridiculous. I understand it's because of the safety of the pit crews. I get that. But I'd much rather you worry about that at the beginning of the race by, you can push the race time a bit back to make sure pit road is at the very least dry, not worry about the racetrack so that you don't have something like this because it just threw off the race, made it annoying personally because it's like, okay, can we get back to racing because we're going through almost all of stage 1 under yellow. I have an issue with that. But hopefully that gets rectified maybe later on when NASCAR gets more, used to doing wet weathered races. I also have a problem with NASCAR throwing the caution and telling the drivers, okay, you cannot go on the dry tires or you're allowed to not go on dry tires or, telling them what tires to put on. I'd much rather have the teams decide rather than NASCAR decide. Another big issue I have with NASCAR is this caution. This caution, that was a caution. That was a caution. Kyle Busch tapping the wall. It brought me back flashbacks of the All-Star race with Ricky Stenhouse Jr., I think 2 years ago, where he tapped the wall and boom, caution. There was absolutely no need for that because it also screwed up the strategy for majority of the race. Before that, good strategy was happening. You would have drivers like Bubba, I think Larson, Logano, a few other drivers that were doing one type of strategy where they would pit much later on in a stage compared to the other drivers like Truex and those guys that would pit, as predicted. So you had different types of strategies. You had one putting on fresh tires late would create a lot of comers and goers, a lot of, drivers going forward and backward, would create some exciting racing, exciting moments. That caution killed all of that really for a majority of the race because after that, every driver was running the same strategy, except for that final round of green flag pit stops with Denny Hamlin. Yeah, the race itself, I give it maybe like a 4 out of 10. I don't know. To me, after that Kyle Busch incident, there was I don't know if you could really call it strategy because everyone was basically on the same strategy up until that, when Hamlin decided to go off sequence. That's when it got interesting. I will say that the second half of stage 3 That's when it got interesting. So I would bump it up to a 5. There you go. But the first 30 laps of stage 1 and the final half of stage 3, they were the entertaining ones. Everything in between that, really nothing much. Just a lot of what we expect from the short track package. Just you can't go, can't do anything. I mean, even Truex, during that, when he was getting caught up with lap traffic, his crew chief was yelling at him, James Smalls, pass him. You got Logano and Hamlin behind you, pass him. And Truex is like, I can't. There's too much air. Just hearing air at a short track still annoys me. Again, more horsepower or a tire that can wear. It's like we're running on autopilot at this point. Every single short track. More and more evidence. How much more evidence do you need? More horsepower or a tire that wears? Pick one, NASCAR and Goodyear. But I'm not going to talk about that anymore. But yeah, that's just my thoughts on the racing. Again, 5 out of 10. It's typical Richmond, at least with this next gen car. From a broadcast perspective, Harvick and Bowyer were actually okay. Bowyer was tolerable in this race, so it's an improvement. The booth was actually pretty nice. I mean, don't get me wrong, the bar is very low, but I thought the booth was pretty solid for Fox standards. So again, take that with a grain of salt. But I thought it was enjoyable from a broadcasting perspective. Harvick, as usual, gave a lot of great insight. Again, Bowyer was tolerable. So again, that's a win. So booth was fine. Racing, meh. Really not much else to say in terms of the actual racing part. Now, let's talk about some of the drivers. Joe Gibbs, Hendrick, no surprise to see them. Specifically, is usually 1 or 2 drivers from each stable that outperforms the other. This week, it was Hamlin, Truex with Larson from Hendrick Motorsports. Kind of surprised to see the lack of pace from Bowman and Byron. Bowman usually runs well at Richmond. I would expect to see him be more competitive, finish nearly out, just barely inside the top 20. Byron, a quiet top 10 finish for him. I thought I'd expect more noise from that 24 car. Team Penske, wow. Usually we expect Blaney to be the one out in front, but Blaney was non-existent. He was horrible in this race. Logano, surprised to see him finish in second place. He qualified great, but that's usually been the theme of Logano in 2024, is that he qualifies great, but then races horribly or gets caught up in a crash, something that doesn't allow him to finish well. So to see him actually finish the race and finish well, that's some good momentum for that 22 team. I mentioned SHR, at least the 4 and the 10 car. The 10 car of Gragson has been consistently the best SHR car. They've always just been either outside the top 10 or just inside. I've been our 10th to 12th range. Barry, once again, another race where he showed speed. He showed a lot of speed at Bristol. I'm not surprised because this is a type of track that fits Barry's racing style. He always runs well here at Richmond, whether in a Cup or an Xfinity car. So I'm not surprised to see him run well there. I thought I would expect him to finish better, but he did show a lot of pace early on. And yeah, nothing really much else to say about it. I mean, we can talk about RCR and Kyle Busch once again just having another horrible week. I don't know what happened between what happened during the summer of RCR to now, because at the beginning of last year, Busch and that A car were on it, but since then, since the summer, they have just been gone. Very surprising to see that. So yeah, outside of really that, nothing really much else to talk about. I mean, Richmond didn't surprise me. You know, what did surprise me with the wet weather tires, how good they were for those 30 laps. But other than that, nothing really stood out to me from this race. That's why I give it a 5 out of 10. Again, was it the best Richmond race in the next-gen era? Maybe. I don't know. I feel like it's comparable to the other races at Richmond. It's always been a strategic track, at least for a long time now. So again, nothing really stood out to me. But yeah, congratulations to Denny Hamlin. This is his track, driver's track, so I was not surprised to see him win, or at the very least to perform so well here, which pisses me off because I don't know why I had him in my lineup. I literally was thinking about it, but I didn't put him in my lineup, so I'm mad about that. But overall, congratulations to him. And yeah, next weekend we go to Martinsville, which I am terrified of. Unless it's wet, then I'm fine with it. But if it's dry, I am terrified. But that's it for this race review. What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comment section down below. Did you like it? Did you not? Until next time, my name is Jett from MDK. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.